Your Series X just became a time machine. A franchise we haven't seen since the 360 era is coming back, and here's how to get the best Xbox monitor. Let's discuss. If you're looking for a monitor that's able to take advantage of the full power of the Xbox Series consoles, I'm talking 4K gaming, 120 frames per second, then you gotta give this a look. It's the Gigabyte M28U monitor, and it's right now on sale for $520. Obviously, not the cheapest monitor out there, but I chose to highlight it because it has specifically HDMI 2.1 capability. Now, why is that so important? Well, you need that in order to, like I said earlier, access that 4K gaming 120 Hz. This is a great deal, and I'll tell you why. Because the last time I was looking for monitors, I want to say it was like September, October-ish, I was looking for, hey, what would it take to get an HDMI 2.1 supported monitor? And I was searching, scouring the web, Amazon, Best Buy, Target, Newegg, all the major players. And the cheapest HDMI 2.1 monitor I could find was like $650 to $750. That was the cheapest. And eventually I was like, you know, I don't know. I think I have to bring my price point down a little bit. Xbox Ready was not what it was today. It was only like 12,000 subscribers. So it wasn't like I was rolling in cash or anything. I'm not rolling in cash now, but you get what I mean. So seeing a monitor like this with HDMI 2.1 ports drop to this price is pretty exciting. And I think it's a fair deal. I think it's one worth looking at. Usually this monitor is $650. That's more consistent with the prices that I was looking at when I was in the market. And it's discounted all the way to $520. That's a pretty decent discount. Not the best, but pretty decent. The specifications boast a stellar 28-inch 4K IPS display and an assortment of cutting-edge gaming features. For me, that's perfect. This is all part of Best Buy's efforts to kind of do their own version of Amazon Prime Day. Amazon Prime Day is the 12th and 13th, and they're discounting a bunch of stuff. Sort of. Like, the discounts aren't that crazy. They're not like Black Friday levels or anything like that, but they have some sales going on, which I think are pretty decent. But of course, that leads all the other tech guys like Newegg, Best Buy to do their own thing. They're like, hey, instead of doing these deals at Prime Day, what about you come shop with us and buy our stuff? And to be completely honest, this deal for this Gigabyte monitor is a lot better than some of the deals I've seen for Amazon Prime Day. If you want to check out the monitor I'm talking about or any other Xbox accessories, I have the links for all of that stuff down in the description below. Are we gonna see the return of this classic Rare franchise? I'm talking about Viva Pinata. Now I know, guys, Xbox, when you think of it as a brand, you think of the big guys, right? You think of Master Chief, you think of Marcus Phoenix, Gears of War. But back in the 360 era, we had a really off-the-wall, really fun exclusive known as Viva Pinata. I wanna say it was Rare's kind of first real Xbox game after they were acquired by Microsoft. And it was this really funny game where you were making a ranch. It was like a builder simulation game, but you had to tame all the different pinata animals on Pinata Island. So yeah, it was sort of like Pokemon, I guess, in a way, where you wanted to like collect all of the pinata animals, but they also had all sorts of mini games as well. There was like a romance mini game between like little pinata worms. It was really like off the wall, out of pocket. But we haven't seen anything from Viva Pinata since the Xbox 360 generation. It skipped the Xbox One entirely, and now people are thinking maybe it's gonna make a comeback on Xbox Series consoles. Why do people think that? Because Microsoft's trademark of the Viva Pinata name is almost up. And from my understanding, you have to actively be working on the trademark, the title, in order to maintain the rights to it. So that's what leads a lot of people to say, okay, maybe they're gonna be putting out another Viva Pinata soon, maybe, I don't know, maybe like a remastered bundle collection. We know that Rare is pretty busy nowadays. They're working on Sea of Thieves, putting new content into that game, and we also know that they're working on Everwild. We haven't really seen too much on that, hopefully soon. So I guess it's entirely possible that Xbox uses another studio or ships the name out to a third-party place. If you had something like Viva Pinata, but it was open world, like Goat Simulator, I feel like that would kill. Viva Pinata was geared towards kids, and I feel like a lot of people out there will agree with that. They'll say, oh my gosh, I used to love this game as a kid. Back when it came out in 2006, I was obsessed with this game. But even though the audience has matured, they're still sort of into games like that. They're still interested into silly, goofy games. Goat Simulator is one of those games. Fall Guys is a silly, goofy, colorful game, similar color palette to Viva Pinata. I don't know, I feel like it could do really well if it released in this generation. Next up, let's talk about Xbox in Japan. Xbox in Japan, it's killing it by Xbox standards. So Xbox 360, that was the best-selling console, right, from Xbox. That was like the peak of Xbox culture. But even the 360, as good of memories as we all hold of that generation, didn't even make a dent in the Japanese gaming market when you compare it to the PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo consoles of the day, especially the Wii. Xbox One generation, obviously, sales were down for that console as a whole everywhere, but in Japan, it was abysmal. And that led Microsoft, of course, to say, hey, this generation, we really want to make a concerted effort to grow our presence in Japan because it's a huge gaming market. You can argue it's like the birthplace of video games. We want to do our part to build a better relationship with Japanese publishers and game developers, and just sell more consoles in Japan. We've seen a few times this generation Xbox Series consoles outselling PlayStation 5, which in and of itself is crazy enough, right? Especially coming off the heels of the Xbox One generation. But they've recently hit an important milestone. They've sold over 260,000 Xbox Series consoles in Japan, which is more than double the amount of Xbox One consoles they sold over the entire 8 or 9 year span that generation lasted. And again, I know that's just a drop in the pond compared to all the millions of PlayStations and Nintendo Switches that were sold in Japan, but it's still a victory worth celebrating for Xbox. I feel like it's really cool that they're standing by their word. They put it out into the universe, hey, we want to do better in Japan, we want a better relationship with Japanese developers, and it's manifesting itself in some weird way. We finally have Persona 5 and Atlas games on Xbox. They're selling more consoles in Japan. They said they were going to do it, and they did it. Now let's talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. Y'all remember when this game first came out? It was 2018. And first of all, that was a crazy year for gaming. We had Breath of the Wild, Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War. It was a great time to be a gamer, man. It was, and the hype leading up to Red Dead Redemption 2 was insane. People were chomping at the bit to experience this game. It has to be like the most anticipated sequel to a video game in the past like 5-6 years. But as the years go on, guys, it just makes me sad. Red Dead Redemption 2, and especially how Rockstar has chosen to treat that title specifically. According to a leak from this Rockstar insider, Rockstar reportedly once intended to release Red Dead Redemption 2 for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, but has since shelved plans to do so. And when I see stuff like this, like, why did you even make the game in the first place? Red Dead Redemption deserves a next-gen version. It deserves it. And they've already shown that they can do it and they have an interest in it because they ported over Grand Theft Auto 5 to Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 consoles. They're still adding online stuff for GTA. And meanwhile, Red Dead Redemption is just sitting there. Like, you managed to deliver such a great gaming experience, one of the best games that's come out over the past 5 years, arguably. A truly unique, it's an open world Western adventure game with a great story, with an exceptional voice cast. You go back and you play that game, you're sitting around your campfire, you hear the sounds of the wilderness, wolves howling in the distance. It's so immersive and great, and Rockstar just chooses not to do anything with it. They've left Red Dead Online to die, to wither away, to the point where players held a funeral for the game over, I think, like it was last week. They haven't added any content to the single player stuff. They're not doing the next gen versions of Red Dead 2, all because they want to focus on Grand Theft Auto 5. That's what they're pouring all their attention into, and Grand Theft Auto 6 now. And again, I just have to say, why, man? Why? I mean, you gave a game that came out almost 10 years ago a next-gen version before your most recent title? It makes no sense. And then there was this whole thing where they released the remasters. They did a terrible job for it. And then there was news that came out that were like, oh, we're shelving plans to remaster the original Red Dead Redemption, and we're not going to focus on any of that stuff anymore because they did a terrible job. And now they're like, okay, no one bought it and everyone made fun of us. Now we're just not going to do anything that anybody wants. So Digital Foundry has once again made headlines in the Xbox community because they showed the world that you are able to run Windows 98 on an Xbox Series X. Now, Windows 98 has a lot of nostalgia for, I know, a lot of you guys out there and for people my age. We remember doing things like just messing around on Paint in the computer lab. So this is actually really cool because it reminds me of the power of the Series X to run all sorts of emulators. So it's been pretty widely known for a while that if you pay 20 bucks, Xbox will let you turn your Series X into a dev console. And by doing that, people have done all sorts of really cool things. They've run PlayStation 3 games before you were even able to play them on your PlayStation 5, which is crazy. You've also been able to play old Nintendo games that you weren't able to play on the Nintendo Switch. And Digital Foundry just took it to the next level and they were like, yo, what if we throw it way back and run Windows 98 so we can play the original Command and Conquer? We can run programs like Paint even. Pretty cool stuff, I will say. The process looked a little bit complicated, especially for me, who was terrible at stuff like that, and I would definitely like set my Xbox on fire if I tried this. There is a tutorial on how to do this without doing that, but there is a high risk that Xbox will ban your Xbox Live account. So you set your console into dev mode, and then you run a plugin called Retroarch. And that's a plugin that, like I was saying, allows you to play older games, like you can even play PlayStation 2 games on there, all sorts of retro stuff. And then after that, after you do the dev mode, you load Retroarch, you have this other program that you have to load in called DOSBox Pure. And after all that, they were able to load all sorts of classic games. Roller Coaster Tycoon was one of them. That game in particular has a lot of nostalgia for me and my siblings. We used to all gather around our one family computer and play Roller Coaster Tycoon, make these impossible roller coasters that wouldn't even run because there was like actual physics involved in those games. And like I said earlier, they were even beyond the games able to run old school Windows programs like Paint and Word 97. The only caveat here is that they were able to have full keyboard support. Keyboard worked fine, but the mouse did not. They have to use their controller in order to navigate the OS. Obviously, it's way easier to load up Treyarch on your computer or PC, whatever Windows device you have, but it's always cool to see something like this where people really push their Xbox to the limit.